kind of bad press. Craftsmen and craftswomen have traditionally been greatly valued in Finnish society.
Flows you've done in the past, we can maybe get a good idea of what you've done in the past few years.
Yes, in fact, it's augmentation. It's not so new. There is an editor, is a manager, in fact, who validate the content.
Level, we're part of something called the C2PA, working on the threats and harms there. We do policy advocacy and discussion on that. I've testified in the US Senate and Congress. And at the same time, we work very closely with journalists and human rights defenders on the ground, providing directions or influencing that. And so, our frame for today is this question of the elections that are impacting almost half the world's population. And whenever I talk about this, and I've been talking a lot about this in this year of AI and elections, as it was sort of named at the start of the year. And the first thing I'll say, and I think this goes without saying perhaps in this room, is that shallow fakes, just manipulated, saying boycott the election, vote for another candidate. And so it's typically one of these lip sync dubs where the lips are adjusted. We continue to see AI content in disinformation contexts. A couple of noteworthy examples from the last year here. One is after the Moscow terror attacks, Russian TV, state TV, broadcast a senior Ukrainian official apparently claiming responsibility. And again, it was existing news content manipulated with a lip sync dub. AI more broadly, as we look at both reporting on this and talking about it, which is, of course, in India, we're seeing the usage of this in political communication, for example, to communicate in personalized ways to individual voters, often less educated voters who may not be able to discern what is happening with a personalized voice call. We're seeing AI translation, of course, in Pakistan, the use of a voice clone to represent Imran Khan from behind bars, but an authorized voice clone based on words that he helped create. Similarly, use of AI in campaigning, both to create the types of sort of mimetic propaganda type images, but also to represent candidates in contexts where they would like to meet their constituents, but never have. For example, these ones on the right, meeting children and meeting farmers in India. And then we get into the more complex middle terrain that I think is often the hardest for journalists to think how to report on and for publics to work out how to grapple with, which is this idea of, this is a word coined by Ruman Chowdhury and Nigat Dad, of AI soft fakes. The kind of humanizing use of AI that blurs boundaries on the real. Sometimes it's very obvious, like the cuddly deepfakes of Prabowo and Gibran in Indonesia, the presidential and vice presidential candidates, which are really obviously AI, but are being used to soften the image of a former military general, right, Prabowo. And then, the complex issues around consent and disclosure that you might need to explain to the public around a resurrection deepfake, like brought out claiming something was AI, where he said, well, you all know that music from Drake and The Weeknd, how easy it is to make AI. That is why you should believe that this compromising clip that has been released is AI, not real. And I think this is a huge challenge for journalists. Faked. Typically, you don't get beyond about 80 to 85% certainty. You typically get conflicting signals. You typically have to explain that to a skeptical public that wants to believe it's real or wants to believe it's false. And it is a lot harder to do this on social media content, in languages that are non-majority, where the research or the data sets have not been trained. And so think about that problem and think about it if we start to imagine the content level we have now multiplying by 5, by 10, by 15, increasing in persuasiveness, potentially, increasing in use on video, which is our predominant mode of communication. How do we anticipate ahead to that? And what I would argue right now, as we look at this, as the volume gets bigger and 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 bigger, I can't remember how many clips I have, but when we get to this, we have a huge challenge globally, which we describe as a detection equity gap, which is that most journalists, particularly under-resourced journalists, neither have the access to the skills or the tools.
There. So we're going to have 3 rapid fires here. I want you to tell me if this is AI or real. These are some of the challenges that we face at Reuters on a day-to-day news cycle. If you believe this is real, this Trump mugshot, raise your hand. All right, so those who are not raising their hand believe that this is fake. Those raising their hands believe it is real. It is real. But in the lead up to this, everyone was wondering which one is real. These are just a snapshot. This is just a snapshot of several of them that were going around in the lead up to the real photo that was happening. Next one, this photo. Real or AI? Who believes this is real? Who believes it's AI? Hands up, don't be shy. This is real. Actually taken by one of Reuters photographers. And this is something where we had clients ask us, wait, but isn't that fake? No, it's real. Our photographer was just that good. But it doesn't have the hallmarks of things where you think, well, it looks a bit blurry, or you can't really figure it out, you can't make out the faces, all those hallmarks. And finally, this one. Who believes this is AI? Right? Some of us are sure. It is AI. And I'm going to get back to this photo in a little bit. But for starters, we're just going to talk about transparency. So when it comes to synthetic media, so the umbrella term that deals with deepfakes and AI, transparency is often a conversation that happens, and it's something that's very important for us. And it's a conversation around, who is the onus on? Is it on the companies that create these things? Is it on the platforms that host them? Is it on the user themselves? And these are often the conversations that are happening, but in the context of an election, this is where we're seeing politicians themselves use AI. And for this example, I will refer to Ms. Xochitl, one of the opposition candidates in Mexico. Mexico is just days away from voting. She had posted a video of herself, an AI version of herself, saying that this is her spokesperson, and that any future messaging coming out will be through this AI spokesperson. Now, she's transparent about that. But when we look at the following videos, it wasn't clear, is it actually her, or is it her AI spokesperson? So the transparency was limited there. Also, we had, for the first time, ahead of last year, the Republican Party had posted an advert slamming Joe Biden and the vice president. And this was made entirely out of AI. And they were transparent about that. But the question arises as to, when does that transparency fade away? And then what? This is one of the main concerns that we have. And yes, even if they weren't transparent, we can teach ourselves the signs of what is manipulated media. So for example, you can see the smooth shininess, some wonky teeth, some really extended long earlobes. And of course, what we advise everyone to do is not look at the central characters, but look at the background. This is where you'll find a lot of telltale signs. But then this brings us to the next challenge. And this is the biggest challenge, I would argue, for fact checkers at the moment, and that is audio deepfakes.
You go to the hospital, you have a broken arm. You come out and you're a drug addict with this crap.
Now, did you say that? It's a trick question. I won't put you on the spot. It's actually a quote he made, but I put it through a deepfake. So if anyone, just to work there, he actually said that quote, but it's through a deepfake. And so this raises questions, and these are the challenges that we have. It's especially difficult to verify. So those signals with the visuals that I was able to point out before, it's not there with audio deepfakes. There's no visual elements. It's also a new frontier. There's no bulletproof tech, and it cannot be used to accurately assess 100% that this would be an audio deepfake. And as Sam mentioned earlier, one of the big issues is that a person saying audio is AI is often not enough for verification, and therefore people will use the excuse of, well, that's AI, as an excuse to kind of offset any sort of scandal or leaked audio that happens. So for example, in 2016 or 2015, we started hearing, oh, that's fake news, that's fake news.
I'm lying. And at the end, it depends on the journalist what he wants to publish. I'm a tool. Now I'm working as a tool. And I'm still training. And I can't say that it's always 100% working. So to me,
it still thrives more and more as it is separated. And I think that is the solution to be quick and independent in digital, not as a media company in a whole. That might be slow, but if you split it down or split it up, then you have to.
So you.
But we also have a lot of examples of digital things created inside media companies fail as individual products afterwards. And let's not name names, but we know about super hyped up things that.
Thanks for watching. To keep updated, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give us a big thumbs up.